Hey guys, what's up? Firefang92. Uh, I'm going to be bringing you a deck profile today on my Great Natures. Just sort of because I haven't put out a lot of content recently and I miss talking at you guys. Uh, so, the reason I haven't been doing any content are the news of the weeks, you know. All the news has been Bermudas and I just no, not talking about Bermudas. Probably the next stuff that's going to get revealed is the token Ronbu, and I may talk about those just because they're new. I don't know. Only time will tell. But for now, deck profile time. I am missing like a couple cards, but it will be pretty obvious, and we'll go over them. But for all intents and purposes, for the time being, this complete. So, diving right in, we got a starter of Pencil Koala, who, aside from being adorable, at Genbreak 1, when an attack hits a Vanguard during a battle that it boosts, choose one of your other rear guards that gets 4k, and the effect that at the end of the turn, it retires, and you draw a card. So, if I'm honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with its performance, and I've been thinking about maybe switching it back to Blackboard Parrot, who's just slipping into the soul. Give something the effect that at the end of the turn, if it retires, you draw a card. Because most of the time, she doesn't hit, and she's restricted by the GB1. So, kinda hard. Moving on to the grade 3s, we're going to start with 4 copies of Contradictory Instructor Tuskmaster. Really great backup. G-Break 1, when he attacks a Vanguard, that's important, because it's a once per turn. When he attacks a Vanguard, Counterblast 1, choose one of your other rear guards, stand it, it gets 4k, and then at the end of the turn, it retires. So, standing stuff in the Great Nature deck is really nice, because you can stack those 4Ks on top of 4Ks on top of 4Ks and have a rear guard swinging for like 26. Especially with one of the Stride bosses, who you probably know, but I'll save till talking about later anyway. Next up, one of the points where it's incomplete is I only have 3 famous Professor Big Bellies right now. Fun card. So his first effect is G-Break 2. When he attacks a Vanguard, choose one of your rear guards, and it gets 4k, and at the end of the turn, retire it and draw a card. Meh. Where he really comes into his own is the, because that effect is just sort of whatever. If you wanted that, you should have just been playing, like, Trainee Sage Minette or something. Or like, just Leopold, I don't know. It's just, like, it's very underwhelming. But his on-stride effect is Counterblast 1, choose 2 of your rear guards, they get 4k, and then they get the effect that if an attack by a unit in the same column as this unit hits a Vanguard, if the power is 20,000 or greater, draw a card. So that's really great, especially when you're like standing things up with him. Or if you... a hilarious thing happened one time. Actually, I'll talk about that in just a minute because it involves one of the grade 2s that we haven't got to yet. Yeah, it's a really fun card with that on-stride effect. The only problem is that you have to have a field when you stride on top of him to get the full use out of him, which is kind of hard with like Kagero and Narukami and everything floating around right now. Gear Chronicles too, I guess. So that's a little bit problematic, but he's still fun. He's still fun. And eventually I'll get a fourth. Okay, grade 2s. 2 copies of Malicious Saber. 12k attacker. He's there to make numbers. Especially because if you haven't noticed already, your Great Nature mechanic adds 4k instead of 5k. So if I'm only using something like, say, Tuskmaster, and I have to stand him with Tuskmaster, that's still a 16k attack, so it's nice. Yeah, the G-Break one slows it down, but what are you going to do? We don't have another 12k attacker except one to Counterblast, and Counterblast is way too precious in this deck. 2 copies of Sleepy Taper. When it attacks a Vanguard, choose one of your guards, and it gets 4k, and then at the end of the turn, retire that card. So more doping. And then resist, which annoys me. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'll save, maybe I'll do like a full rant video on resist, because that's a big topic, but I'm not going to go into it here. Anyway, Sleepy Taper, kind of staple to get those 4Ks. Next up, we have 2 copies of Capable Assistant Guru Wolf. I tried cutting this guy to 0, but he's too good when he goes off. He's a lot of pressure. Because when his attack hits a Vanguard, if his power is 20 or greater, draw a card. That's really nice, especially with this guy with Big Belly. I mean, this will probably never happen for you, but one time I managed to get just Guru Wolf and his booster was my only field presence at the time, and I had Big Belly on my Vanguard, so I stride. And it's like, I wasn't planning for it to go off or anything, but, you know, my only option was 4k here, 4k here. So, I think I got, like, one more 4k or something in there, because I think I was swinging for, like, 28. And my opponent's just like, okay, that's too big, no guard. And I'm like, seriously? Draw one, draw one, draw one. That was a hilarious game. And again, he's really good with your, like, Tuskmasters as a stand target, because that adds more pressure in again. So yeah, he's the pressure card, and that's what he's there for, because there's a lot of standing and a lot of, well, something you can probably guess. Next up, we got 4 copies of Set Square Penguin. G-Break 1, on call, choose one of your rear guards, and it gets the effect that if it retires at the end of turn, draw a card, and choose a card and turn it face up from your damage zone. This guy's been a little bit underwhelming. I may cut him back in future builds, because, you know, like, I've been playing since Set 7 days, Great Nature, and one thing that was always a constant is you always wanted to have your duckbills, and they were so important. But the problem with the direction this deck is going is that you need to set up your field beforehand, so you don't often have an opportunity to call a thing on the turn you're making your push and still have full usage of all the things. But yeah, drawing cards is great, and unflips are kind of important too, because there is a bit of counterblast in this deck. I don't know, like, try and for yourself, because I can't say whether that one's, like, really good or bad. My final grade 2 is I've got 2 copies of Cran Tiger. It's another thing that I probably want to get more of in the future, because this is so good. So good. It's your Amber clone, so Counterblast 1, on boost, G-Break 1. Stand a thing, give it 4k, just like Tuskmaster. But he has the addendum that at the end of the turn, it retires and you draw a card. So he can fuel your retires, and he can get you additional cards, and he stands the thing and gives it 4k. So this guy is just so terrific. so, 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 so terrific. Especially when you have him and Tuskmaster. Because then you can go, like, Tarir, to Van, to Van, to Van. Which is really great, especially with that secret thing that I'm not talking about yet. Okay, grade ones. 2 copies of composed scientist Nyan Kuro. So, if you guys hadn't noticed, Great Nature adds 4K at a time. And they designed it that way, and they stuck with that design specifically so that it wouldn't become overpowered or replace Dimension Police or anything like that. But the issue therein is that a normal row is 16, and adding 4K to a 16K row is just a waste. So you play the 8Ks so that you can slip them behind the 9Ks and make 21K rows. That simple. And the reason that I played this one over Silver Wolf is because it's adorable. Look at it. Look, it's a little cat reading a book. It's adorable. I love it. Okie dokie. Now something that you really have to have at 4 is Diligent Assistant Mini Belly. First off, again, adorable. But it searches out your big belly by discarding a card if you have another grade 3 in hand, which is the reason I feel comfortable displaying this deck, even though I only have 3 of the main boss, because I can search them out at any time. And you can discard them to stride. And this deck is very stride heavy. So you really want to have the 4 so that you can stride at any time. I guess we'll talk more about that when we get to the strides. Okay. Next up, obvious thing is obvious. 4 copies of Contradictory Instructor Shellmaster. GPG, and I don't feel like I need to talk about that because the only other alternative is the regular PG, and I want the end flips. Next up, we got 2 copies of Taping Cat. I was a little hesitant about this guy at first because I'm like, well, you don't really soul charge unless you want to put up, like, Eraser Pangolin or something. Oh, if you don't know, he's the Luckbird clone, Soul Blast 2 on call, draw card. But he's actually been really nice. There have been a lot of opportunities where he's helped me, like, create better columns, or set up for my play better, because I can call him, draw. And especially with the Great Nature mechanic of just bumping the things, then ditching them, I can still use it to, like, attack or anything, because it's up 4K. And then just get rid of it, and I just got an additional card out of the deal. So it effectively does what Duckbill has always done, but it does it a little bit more. It matches the rhythm of the G-Era deck a little bit better, because you want to set up the turn before. Again, that's something I'm a bit uncomfortable with. I hope we get more support that's more like the old stuff, but hey, you play what you gotta play. Last of my grade 1s, 2 copies of Coiling Duckbill. When he's placed on rearguard, choose one of your other rearguards, and it gets, if it's retired during the end phase, draw card. So it helps you get additional pluses out of the retiring mechanic. I feel like maybe I could use a little bit more, but he's really hard to find. He was a BT8 rare, and BT8 wasn't all that popular. It's sort of overshadowed by how unpopular Set 7 was, but BT8 still didn't get many sales. But yeah, great card. Extra pluses. Always good. And I feel like I should talk about just the fact that with you having the additional power, you should be able to turn the power bumps into negs for your opponent anyway. So just throwing in that additional draw is a real plus, even though you're retiring a thing. So don't let anyone tell you you're just 1-for-1 with this card. You are plussing. Moving on to triggers. 3 crits. 1 Cutter Falcon, 2 Holder Hedgehog, not that it matters. The only thing is I don't play Roller Chameleon because I hate Roller Chameleon. It's such a wasteful card. And really you're just better having something that can boost for 5k, because there are situations where that will matter. Having something that you buff to 7 is not good. And it removes triggers from the deck and blah. So, next up, a little bit surprising, 1 stand, 5 stands. I want to be playing 8, but nobody bought set 7, which is a problem I run into way too often. This was the only extra Great Nature stand I could find in my collection. Because I did have an old Great Nature deck that I ended up selling off, which had stands in it. But stands are really, really great in Great Nature, just because you've buffed your rear guards up to extreme numbers. So you're talking about 26, Vanguard. Ooh, look, I got a stand. Stand that, 26 again. And because the way normal people play, because most aggressive decks are Vanguard intensive, is, you save the PG for the Vanguard. But when you have to be focusing more attention on the rear guards, normal play doesn't really work that well. So the stands really catch people by surprise, and they can definitely win you games. So, yeah, definitely play the stands. This is the new stand we got, Protractor Orangutan. G-Break 1, Counterblast. During the end phase, when he's retired, search your deck for another copy of him, put it into your hand, and then put this back in the deck and shuffle. So that's the important distinction between him and Ruler. Also, this one's a 4k and Ruler's a 3. And buffing for 8 is... Okay, I'll admit that's not better. Unless we have some sort of... Well, we do have 13k attackers, I'd imagine, but I'm not playing them because they're probably stupid. Anyway, yeah, but the difference is that this does not take a trigger out of the deck. So that's better. And stands. Stands are awesome. In Great Nature. Got ourselves 4 draw triggers, because draws. Four heals, because heals. Again, this was the only old one I could find. Fuck set 7 for being so hard to find. Yeah, I don't really feel compelled to talk about the draws or the heals because, you need to have defense and you need to be able to survive until you can make your plays, etc., etc. Moving on to strides. We got 4 copies of Immortality Professor Phoenix guy. This guy's great. Because on attack, he gives up to 2 cards, 4k, and then at the end of the turn, they retire. So he can fuel your retiring, which is... I know, this deck doesn't make a good argument for the importance of that, because I am playing the new G build, and there's less importance of that in this deck. It's really just my duck bills and my set squares. But if you do have enough of the old support, or even just like the Legion, or what's his name, Leopold, who's going to become big after the Fighter Collection, the retires become very important, because those are your ways of actually getting your engine to run. Anyway, worst case, he functions as buffing a row 8k. So that's pretty good. That can be 2 stages if you do it right. So he has a lot of utility. Some of you might say I should probably switch 1 or 2 out for Blizza. You're probably right about that. With all my decks, I've just been, collecting the specific strides and just, ignoring Blizza. I got punished for that at Regionals. One of my losses ended up being because I did not have the Blizza, so I've learned my lesson. Hang on, I probably have one nearby. Okay. Okay. Okay, never mind that. Never mind that 4th Phoenix. We're playing 1 Blizza. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. So what happened was that I was beating the guy really hard, and just it was Narukami versus Narukami. He could not create a field presence at all, and we were going into late game, and he was just losing cards at a much faster rate than I was. And the turn before the last turn, he has 4 or 5 cards in hand, and I know if I did well, I could have broken through it, but the only thing I had to stride was because he didn't have a perfect. The only thing I had to stride was Zurus. He did manage to block that, but had I had the Blizza, it would have been over 58, I think, and I definitely would have won. So apologies, Sam and Jesse. I should be playing Blizza. Okay, next up, we got 4 copies of the Headlight. Omniscience. Dragon Managarmer. Act, counterblast 1 once per turn. Flip up another Omniscience Dragon Managarmer, and choose 2 of your guards, and they get 4k. And the effect that when this unit attacks a Vanguard, so not a unit in the same column, so you do have to give it to attackers, unfortunately. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if its power is 20,000 or greater, which I should mention it definitely does include boosts and triggers and things, your opponent can't guard with grade 1 or graders. And that is spectacular, especially when you're doing things like Tuskmaster, and Crayon Tiger, and just going 3, 4, 5 attacks in a turn with your stand triggers. If you can get your opponent to 4 or 5 damage, I guess you have to get it to 5 because it's a stand deck. If you can get your opponent to 5 with this guy, you are basically guaranteed the win, because you have these guys. And that is the long and the short of the deck. This one's SP. Really all I have left to say. Some people say it's a little bit underwhelming because the glory effect is better on the Vanguard circle, because your opponent will be worried about crits. And I don't think that's better. I think what it is that most aggressive decks these days are Vanguard intensive, and people either don't remember or never knew what it was like for playing rearguard intensive aggressive decks. Even Neonectar does a half-handed job of sort of simulating it. But for those of us that remember way back in the day, old school Novas and things like that, it's a very different game to play. And if you play that game right, with this, you're absolutely unstoppable. I mean, yeah, I have lost games with the deck. Since its completion, I have lost one game with the deck, and that was against I Am Vanguard, and that was because I needed one trigger and got nothing in the triple drive. He got crit, and I think heal or something in his triple drive, and I was at 4 damage and was just 5k short of guarding both rear guard attacks, because I did guard the Vanguard attack. Oh, that's really all I have to say. So I guess this is been nice talking at you guys again. Firefang92 signing out.